time up. Deep right field. Down the line it goes. Castellanos is out of room. It's out of runner goes. 3-2 pitch hit down the line. Is it fair? It is a fair ball. Into the corner. Off and running. Chu. Yu Chang around third. He's going to score easily. And into second. Hit hard. Hit deep. Up and out. Goes Amed Rosario. And there's a fly ball. Left field. It's deep. It's up. It's gone to the porch. Hit pretty well. Deep left center field. It is gone to...
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on into another fun-filled episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast, playoff version activated. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby, and here with me, as always, is my co-host, James Ellifritz. James, what's happening?
Hey, Mel, what's going on behind you? What's that screen all about?
It's like I'm in the locker room with them.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel the champagne dripping down the back of my head.
Haven't we been talking for weeks now? Playoffs, and guess what? It's finally here. It was so much fun watching those guys celebrate in the locker room. But I think the still image that I loved the most was Tito with his hands up in the air, just like this, celebrating the dugout and just seeing the joy on his face. Like, he was a young kid again, just playing minor league ball or playing at the University of Arizona, just a baseball player, even though he's a manager and a long time and future Hall of Famer. It was just so much fun to watch him after what he's battled with his health in the last season. So he's had a great year, and so has the team.
Yeah, this might have been his best work yet with this young group. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you're listening to a Guardians podcast and don't know, but in case you don't, the Cleveland Guardians are AL Central champions, the youngest team in baseball with an average age of just 26.6. They clinched the division on Sunday with a 10-2 ass whooping of the Texas Rangers to complete the sweep. It actually happened when the White Sox lost to Texas a few minutes before their game ended. But the celebration was incredible. You see a little bit of it behind me. Just a bunch of kids having the time of their life. Tons of alcohol, pizza. Like, of course, this team would have pizza. It's just such like a young kid thing. And I think it's just the epitome of this team and how cool they are. And I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but when Luke Maile caught that final out, I shed like literal tears of joy because there's been something so magical about this team all season long. Like the entire summer has been just so fun with this team. And all I could think about was all the goofballs who are missing this amazing season because of a name change, because of a cartoon mascot. They're missing out on, I mean, I'm 31. I know I'm not, I haven't seen it all, but this might be one of the top 5 funnest Cleveland baseball teams I've ever watched. And, the tone was set in spring training when Jose inked that long-term 7-year extension as the buses were headed out of Goodyear.
One of my favorite things I saw too was Sandy Alomar's comment that, hey, we have the best culture. We have the best organization in baseball. Yeah. And in reality, with, Tito being our manager, and we've talked about it since I joined the podcast, what a great organization they are. And I think by having that foundation is why these young guys have been able to be successful, because it's very rare that it's happened in baseball. Like you said about the average age is 26.2 years old, the second youngest ever to make the postseason. The 1970 Reds were at 25.9 were the youngest. And then the last team to do it was the 86 Mets, one of my favorite non-Cleveland teams. That was a fun group to watch. I know that was before your time, but that was a crazy, crazy team. Their age was 27.2. And I didn't realize that until, we've been talking so much about the youth in Cleveland with our Guardians, that Mets team was that young. And they actually went on to win the World Series. So that gives us a path that It's not that we have to totally trailblaze it. It's happened before where a young team like what we have now can win a championship, realistically win a championship. It's been since 86, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, nobody thought the 88 win Atlanta Braves were going to win the World Series last year. Once you get in, anything can happen. And I've said all along, if this team can just get in, they have all the tools to make a run. They have everything that you would look for to make a deep run in the postseason. I think this is just the beginning, but you mentioned what a great organization this is. And I got to give Antonetti and Chernoff and the front office some credit here, because I was one of, a lot of people in the fan base who was in panic mode a little bit when they didn't do a single thing other than some minor league deals. Once the lockout ended, they didn't do anything before the lockout, didn't do anything major after the lockout. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? I know they had to have watched the same offense we did last year. There's no way they're going to run these guys out there again. And from day one, this team has been committed to playing the kids. And that was able to happen because they didn't hang on to the guys like the Oscar Mercados, the Bobby Bradleys, the Bradley Zimmers, the Yu Changs, the guys who weren't part of the future. They didn't hold on to those guys till June, like they've done in years past. And because of this, 16 guys were able to make their major league debuts this year, and nobody got a free ride. Almost all of those 16 contributed to this team winning a division. I mean, obviously you got the obvious guys, the Stephen Kwans and the Oscar Gonzalez's, which, let me add, coming out of spring training, Tito was very clear. Stephen Kwan is not going to play every day. We have other guys. He's not going to be an everyday guy. Obviously, Kwan forced his way not only into the everyday lineup.
He said, yeah, let's see about that.
Yeah, but into the leadoff spot, easily top 3 rookie of the year candidate. And then Oscar Gonzalez, they didn't even add him to the roster. He needed to be rostered last offseason. They didn't even add him. If there would have been a Rule 5 draft, he would have been taken, and they were totally fine taking that risk. I don't think anybody thought that Oscar Gonzalez would be what he has been to this point, just because his hitting profile is so goofy. Dude doesn't walk at all. He strikes out a ton, but he can hit the ball 450 feet. And that's how a $66 million payroll won the division, because they never panicked to make a move just to make one.
Yep.
Where I think we saw teams like Minnesota, they made a move just to make moves. Hey, we signed Correa, even though we know he's not going to be here after this year. We got Tyler Mahle, who was damaged good. We got Jorge Lopez, who was actually the one holding the Orioles bullpen back. And Antonetti and company don't do that. We know they were close on guys like Jesse Winker and Matt Olson. They didn't get their guy. They stood pat in spring training. Same with the deadline. I know for a fact they tried to move Zach Plesac. They were actually very close to moving Zach Plesac. But once the deal they liked couldn't get done, they held on to him and they stood pat. They trusted the guys in this clubhouse. And that gives a young team a lot of confidence, James.
And what you said about, at the beginning of the season, or, during spring training where, we didn't add anybody, right? We didn't make the trades. We didn't even do it at All-Star break.
Yeah.
So we were looking at it as a cost savings because of the new ownership, minority ownership to future majority ownership coming in. But what it was really, what we didn't know about was that, okay, with the young guys, not only are we going to play them and we're not going to make those trades, but they had a plan in place on a style of play. And that's what I don't think seen, because we talked for a few weeks back and I brought up about, and I was thankful to actually hear it from some local guys, but also some national media, that first to third mentality, that they practice that in spring training. Just keep going, make that your common habit, even on singles. Look to be aggressive, and that aggressive play on the base paths has put that pressure on all these defenses. I mean, look, we just had another, who scored from second base? Was that Kwan again?
Yep.
On that ball
Sunday in Texas. Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
he scored the second run.
To see that twice in the last
bounce
few
out
weeks.
to third base, scored 2 runs. And that is why. That's exactly what we've been talking about on here. they're not going to beat themselves. And that frustrates teams. A lot of times teams sit back and they wait for you to make a mistake. This team doesn't do that. And they're going to make you make a perfect throw home every single time. And when you don't, that guy from second's coming home to score too.
And that list of young teams, the youngest teams to make the postseason, of that list, starting in 1943 with the Cardinals, all the way to 86 with the Mets, like I talked about, every one of those teams were National League teams. Mets, Reds, Phillies, Dodgers, Cardinals played National League style ball, and that's back when pitchers would hit.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about a few weeks ago, or even last week, about that National League style of play, where you have that speed at the top of the lineup and you're very aggressive on the base paths, but then also your defense is fantastic as well. And, you know, I heard Austin Hedges talk about the defense comes first from the catching position. And we know that, you know, in the way they're calling games, even Miles Straw, you know, up the middle between the catcher and the center fielder. Defensively, we are absolutely solid. Now, do we lose a little bit, you know, at the plate? Sure. But look where it's got us so far. We can't complain.
Yeah. And I would say, so I did a little digging. I'd say the low point of the season was all the way back on May 22nd, and they were 17-22. They were in third place, 6 games behind Minnesota. Since then, they've went 69-47. And I mentioned this when I posted that little post-game recap on the podcast page Sunday after the game, that I think the biggest thing with this team all season has just been their bounce back. Like, for such a young team, you kind of worry about the skids, right? You worry about them getting a little too low with the lows and too high with the highs. And the veteran leadership on this team, which are like upper 20s, it's not anybody, no wily veterans, but most of the guys are still in their 20s. Jose just turned 30, Hedges. Yeah. But they've stayed real level. You know, like, remember back in April or May, they lost 7 straight in New York and Anaheim. And we're like, oh God, this could spiral really fast. Yeah. They bounced right back. They didn't stay down for too long. They looked flat in Seattle at the end of August. We were all pumped up. How are they going to match up against the Mariners? That's a playoff team. They were in one of their skids. They looked flat, and it carried into the homestand. They began September losing 4 straight to Baltimore and those same Mariners. Yeah. And even with starting September flat, they're currently 19-7 this month. You know, before the off day Monday, they played 18 games in 17 days, and they went 16-2. And that includes demoralizing Minnesota, then just going on the road, smacking Chicago in the mouth, taking them right out of the race too. You just think about it. 1 week before Sunday, their magic number was 13. In exactly 7 days, they clinched the division. 7 days later.
Mel, I thought that Minnesota series, that 5-game series, was going to be one of those like, oh my gosh, we're just going to be going crazy each game. And we took 4 out of 5, but I thought it was going to be even that much more important to make sure that we get out of there unscathed for that series. But, you know, Minnesota and Chicago played like wounded animals. And Minnesota technically was, for the amount of guys they had on the disabled list. But Minnesota Chicago just was so flat.
And I understand why their fans are so upset, because everything about that team, it's just like they came out of spring training, and since everybody predicted they would win it, that they didn't even have to show up and play the games. This is our division. We can coast through the season. They're sloppy defensively. They look like they hate each other on the field. Like, I thought Lance Lynn was going to literally beat Yoan Moncada up on the field for botching those balls at third base in that series. And they just don't play a good brand of baseball. They're like a very unlikable team. And, you know, the Guardians were 43-27 against the division. Those are the games that mean just a little bit more, because there could be so much movement in the standings in those head-to-head games. And who else is leading the way other than Josh Naylor? Own the Central, hitting .283 with 12 of his 19 home runs and 41 RBIs, which obviously we're all going to remember Monday, May 9th, which is my moment of the season. You know, they're down 4 in the 9th. They load the bases. Josh Naylor blasts that grand slam off Liam Hendricks, and then comes right back and hits the game-winning 3-run bomb in the 11th. And that set a record for RBIs for a single player from the 8th inning on. And I think that showed this team, like, you know what? We're never out of this. We have the guys. We have the firepower. We can win a game in the late innings, and our bullpen's good enough where we can do it. If you had to pick just one moment, James, what would be like one of your top moments of the season?
I don't know if I can. I mean, the division title is something that, yeah, we started talking about, what, 3 weeks ago? But realistically, we're like, gosh, can this team really do it all year? Right? Can they keep fighting and making these plays in the outfield that, the Stephen Kwan does between at the plate and the outfield? I can't. There's too many. This one, there's just too many.
That's a sign of a fun summer.
Yeah.
You can't even pick just one. And
to finish up Chicago, it tells you, like we talked about a little bit earlier, culture. I mean, the culture that we have in our clubhouse is so different than Chicago. And it just goes to show that talent isn't everything.
Yeah.
Yes, you need some talent on the field. Don't get me wrong.
There's a human element
but
too.
If your clubhouse doesn't have their shit together, you're gonna fall short. You're gonna hit low of your expectations.
Yeah, and another amazing development for me this season has been that bullpen. I mean, this bullpen was put together with rejects from other teams and our own failed starting pitchers. It was just put together with duct tape. And believe it or not, these guys have been the best in baseball in the second half of the season. And Sam Henches, for example, I wanted him off the 40-man roster in the worst way. I know he was young, but he was so bad last year. He couldn't command anything. And I'm like, I don't care how hard he can throw, what his stuff's like. He ain't got it. He doesn't got it. And I'm so glad they hung on to him. Just in the month of September alone, Henches he's appeared 10 times, pitched 13 innings, has not allowed a run, has a 0.231 whip, which is walks and hits per innings pitched. I've never even seen it written that low before. He has 16 strikeouts, only 1 walk, and has only allowed 2 hits. And to have that power lefty out of the pen like that is such a weapon. I mean, look at Andrew Miller in 2016. Like, he gives me serious Andrew Miller vibes. And obviously it's anchored in the back by the best closer in baseball, Emmanuel Clase, who's only had 4 blown saves the entire year. He's pretty much been unhittable unless he's completely gassed. And I know you had an interesting little discussion you wanted to have about our guy.
Clase, I mean, I look back at, 1992, Dennis Eckersley won the Cy Young Award. And for a closer to win the Cy Young, I don't see why it's not more of an option. Looking back at the history, and not even more recent history, not seeing Mariano Rivera for his great, Hall of Fame careers he had, never winning a Cy Young Award. So I know they used to have the Rolaids Relief Man of the Year Award that I don't believe is even around anymore. I don't know if Rolaids has dropped sponsorship, but the amount of relievers to win the Cy Young, there's only been 9 of them. And it's something I think that should be reconsidered in Major League Baseball as they're making all these changes that, the value of these closers should be looked at a higher level. But because even back when the other guys were winning these Cy Youngs prior to 92, back then there was a lot more complete games. So the closers didn't have some of the save numbers that, guys have now, because now everybody's on pitch counts. Back then, complete games were like candy, easy access and easy to get. And, they didn't pull pitchers that way. And Emmanuel Clase, for what he's done for this team, locking down that 9th inning, it does have that Rivera feeling of don't get to the 9th against Cleveland, if they got the lead on you and Clase comes in, it's over. He's had an amazing year. And I think back to Clase, where he had the suspension where, he was out for was it PDs, correct? That, just imagine that, he's clean now, right? So he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Why to even think why he was touching on even using those, it just surprises me because his talent's incredible. And thank you, Texas. Thank you, Rangers, for trading him in that Kluber trades, because he's been the best closer that I think we've maybe ever had as far as for his pitches.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get a ton of rest this week too. Like, honestly, I don't care. Not that I'd love to win, but it's like I want him to get at least a few days off. I know you got to pitch him here and there just to kind of keep him in a rhythm, keep him warm.
Yeah.
No back to backs. I think he threw 7 pitches last night against Tampa Bay. Like, that's okay, but don't use him tonight. I don't care if it's a save situation. Our spot, that's one of the benefits of locking up the division early is you have that time.
I think that's Tito knowing his team. I think he's going to go to the guys, and Carl Willis is going to go to the guys and hey, you need a day? All right, we got you. We'll give you a day. But there's going to be some guys that go, hey, keep me on that same rotation, pitch me every so many days. Even from the bullpen standpoint, I'm sure the guys want their regular work, but maybe, like you said, if there's a rest day to get them, then yeah, let's do it. But I really think it's going to be gauged on Tito's and Carl Willis, their relationship with the pitching staff, and know exactly what the guys need in order to stay effective come to game 1 of the postseason.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay's out here right now. Obviously, they're still playing for their seeding, trying to get into the playoffs themselves. But I encourage people not to panic. If like last night, they left 14 guys on base. You're going to lose a game like that. Bieber had a rare stinker, but I'm willing to bet he didn't pull every trick out of his hat against a team that he might face again in a week.
Does it feel like preseason NFL?
Yeah, like I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet you wouldn't want to show that team your best stuff if you're going to play them in a playoff type game. But this whole second half of the season, I've heard from people, oh, that division sucks. They play in the Central. They'd be in 4th place in the East, blah, blah, blah. These people just are choosing not to pay attention to our record against teams above 500. It's that simple, because they've actually had some very impressive wins. Obviously, they went into LA, took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Two of those 3 were on national TV. They've won 3 against Houston on the year. Toronto, I think they've taken 5 out of 7. They play Toronto really well. And they won 2 out of 3 from in Tampa. So, they lost yesterday, so they got another loss, but they swept San Diego in San Diego and then split a 2-game series with them. So those are all playoff teams that we're holding our own against. And what's crazy is even when we looked super flat in Seattle and then at home against Seattle, all those games were close. We were still in those games.
Yeah.
And right now, obviously the big discussion now is who do you want to face? If it's, I think Toronto's got that first spot locked down, but if it's between Tampa and Seattle, and the way I see it is I feel good about them against anybody. I really do. And I'm trying not to be a homer, but when I look at our starting rotation, the wild card series, you're going to have Bieber, Sticks, and Cal at home. I'll take that any day. I actually just bought my game 2 wild card tickets today. I'm so excited. Progressive Field's going to be rocking and I can't wait. But I mean, how could you not like our chances? And I know Seattle's got Robbie Ray, Luis Castillo, George Kirby. And I do worry a little bit about Robbie Ray. He's always given us trouble. He's a former Cy Young candidate. But their bullpen, those Los Bomberos have been looking like the Los Dodos lately.
Yeah,
they've been that 13-11 game in KC, they got Julio on the IL. I'm sure he'll be back for the playoffs, but how healthy is he going to be? Your back's a big thing. You obviously need your back to be in pretty good shape to, get full rotation on a swing. So, his health's up in the air, and they've got some holes. There's some cracks in the foundation out in Seattle, and I think they're beatable. They're beatable too.
Yeah, and the fans really don't come into play because they're going to be super excited because of their playoff drought to just be in the playoffs, but not having a home game, having all three games in Cleveland, that doesn't allow them to be a determining factor other than, I don't know if they're reaching out to the players on social media or whatever, but yeah, that won't play a factor in that round if we do end up playing Seattle, unless those guys are, really saying, hey, we want to do it for these guys, these fans, because we want to beat Cleveland and, get some home games back in the division series. But other than that, yeah, Seattle would definitely be a challenging matchup with that left-handed pitcher, Ray. But
and Tampa scares me for some reason. Like, they're weird because you've never heard of most of the guys on their team, period. But there's something about a Kevin Cash-led team once they get into October that just scares the shit out of me for some reason.
Yeah, and you got Harold Ramirez, you got Mejia.
It would have been Harold Ramirez who beat us.
I know.
That asshole couldn't do anything consistently for us last year. He comes in as the visitor and beats us last night. You gotta love baseball.
And the last play that short hop at third base, bare hand to throw out at first, that was a heck of a play. Hats off to that guy.
Yeah. And props to Miles Straw's hustle before that too. When he beat out that grounder and got the tying run home in the 8th. And it just had me thinking how valuable Miles Straw, obviously he's hit over 300 here in September, which has been huge for him getting on base, turning the lineup back over to the top. But it just had me thinking if he could just hit consistently, even at like a 250 clip, I mean, he could be like a 5-win player with his elite defense in center field and his speed. Like, his speed is the game. He made 2 outstanding plays in the outfield last night in an otherwise meaningless game. And then beating out those choppers at first base. If he could just hit at that I'd be fine. Get up to even like 240, 250. If you could just avoid those seller type months where you're down under 200, if he could avoid those, I'm fine. I'm fine with him playing every day out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both know that even with that improvement, his time out there is probably short term with how many young guys that we have, and to be able to replace him in the outfield, and it could even be as early as next season, not probably right off the bat, but with Will Benson and that young man's got to get some at bats and get him out there because he's a super talented young man.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's going to be really interesting to see what Tito does with his wild card roster, because obviously we know you can switch the roster up after each series. So, with a 3-game wild card series, you only need 3 starters. You may not need as many bullpen arms. Do they keep a guy like Gabriel Arias over Owen Miller? But then they'd either have to pray Josh Naylor could play first all 3 games, because I don't see them putting Gabriel Arias at first base for the first time at the major league level in a playoff game. I've heard Will Brennan's probably making the roster because they can use that exception with Anthony Ghost being on the 60-day IL. So that's their way to, finagle Brennan onto the roster. But then, like you said, Will Benson has been impressive in the outfielder. I think he makes it as that 4th outfielder type of guy. It's just such a good feeling to have so many good options, both on the pitching side. I think Cody Moore should make it over Brian Shaw, but will he? Probably not. But I don't know how you can let Brian Shaw pitch anywhere near a playoff game at this point.
I think of Benson's career, and I look just at his size, and he's definitely more athletic than this guy. But and you may not recall the player, but Fred McGriff, who played for the Padres, Blue Jays, and the Braves, super tall, left-handed first baseman, and that's kind of why I'm bringing it up. Whether or not, if there's not room in the outfield, whether or not he could be considered first base, getting some reps in there maybe next spring training, but it's a long way away. It's stuff that's kind of fun to talk about. What's even more fun, though, is just getting in the playoffs with this young team, getting out there, enjoy a lot, watching the fans, including you at game 2,
I can't wait.
having a great time, packing that ballpark again, nice cool air, breaking in your new sweatshirt that you got.
October rise, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's about. The 2 strikes, got 2 strikes on their hitter, the crowd standing up, starting to cheer. That's, me at home cranking up the speakers in the basement in my cave of champions and hearing it upstairs, turn that down. But no, I don't. I leave it back up because it's playoff time. They need to understand that. So, yeah, but that's how I roll at home. I want to have that stadium feeling.
It's going to be
especially playoff time.
rocking. I'm so pumped. And another thing too, another positive sign heading into the playoffs is Aaron Savali looked great again on Sunday.
Yes.
Went another 5 strong. And I think that could be such a game changer. We got Zach Plesac back on Friday. We'll see how he looks. I think they're going to have to eventually choose between Savali, Plesac, and Morris. Is kind of that long man, or they might go the Tampa Bay route and, piggyback some guys if need be. That's something Tampa Bay loves to do. So they definitely have the arms to make something like that happen. It's going to be interesting to see how they finagle that. We'll see how Zach Plesac looks on Friday against the Kansas City Royals in that final 6-game series, but not too much to recap from the week that was. Our guys went 8-2. Obviously, we know they won the Central. Loved the fan support at the airport too. We didn't really mention that, but
yeah,
came out in the pouring rain and just showed up for these guys, and they looked like shocked, like, holy shit. They came out at 10, 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night, a work and school night, with signs, screaming, yelling. That was so cool to see the support for these guys because these kids have earned it.
Mel, is that something you ever did? Because, every time I hear about, the airport, and you want to welcome the team back, whether it be, the Cavs or, Guardians in this case, I've never did that. I need to go do that one time.
I was telling my fiance the same thing because I'm looking at it and they actually post. I'm always like, I wonder where at Hopkins they land at. I know it's not with the general public. I knew it was always out somewhere else. Then I looked at that news article and it was like Postal Drive or something. I'm like, I need to do that one time, especially if they, have a magical postseason. I'm doing it one time.
The parking spot and where they line up on the fence. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that more off the pod, but yeah, I want to find that out. I need more details.
You can see them pretty up close too. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
A closing note, Stephen Kwan, not just rookie of the week. Stephen Kwan was the American League Player of the Week for last week. He was just killing the baseball, murdering that baseball out there on the field. He hit .438 with 2 home runs, 2 triples, 10 RBIs, and 4 stolen bases. He now has 158 hits on the season. I think he had 3 last night. So that'd be 161 on the season, which is the most for a Cleveland rookie since Kenny Lofton. And I think it was so fitting that Stephen Kwan was the guy who was able to put the game on ice on Sunday with, this team plays a disgusting brand of baseball. They don't hit for power. And here comes Stephen Kwan cranking a grand slam barely over the right field fence. And the way this team plays, he's hustling the whole way. He thinks it's a double. He's hustling right out of the box. Finally got to break out into his home run trot. So happy for that kid.
Yeah.
I've followed him since AA. And I remember people having debates on if he should be rostered last offseason. And I'm like, this kid's going to be special. He's got 15 home run potential, insanely contact skills, defense is elite. I didn't know he'd be this good this fast, but I'm definitely not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Kwan made me pay all year in fantasy when he got off to that hot start in fantasy baseball, and I'm excuse me, I'm looking at the guy and I'm like, yeah, it's going to fall off in May. There's no way. There's no way he keeps this up all year, and he made me pay all year long.
Yeah.
Um, and but what a that story right there. When you asked me earlier what my favorite is, watching his success, because him at the top of the lineup has changed the entire dynamic of the lineup, and how they go about approaching, with Rosario following and then Jose follow. It's just been a great chain, one after another, of how they feed off each other.
He's an
It's
A
been
plus kid
Yeah, it's
too.
been so great. And one other thing I want to add is that, as our magic number was reducing and going down, and we're down to zero, I want to point out, as far as numbers going down, one of our sponsors, Carrie's Weight and Wellness Coaching LLC. Look her up on Facebook. I had the pleasure of speaking to Carrie over the weekend and learn a little bit more about her program. And what a super positive person, very intelligent with her business and what she's wanting to do to help people. And if you want to see numbers go down too, I recommend that you reach out to Carrie, check her out, check her company out, Carrie's Weight and Wellness Coaching LLC, and she will help get you to your magic number as well.
Great job there. Yeah, definitely go check out them. Thank you for that plug. So yeah, we got 2 more against Tampa Bay to finish off this series, and then we get that 6-game series at home against the Royals, a series we thought would mean a lot more than it does. Luckily, it doesn't. We do only get Brady Singer once in that series, same with Zach Greinke. So we're going to finish out the year that way. They're raising the Central Division flag on Saturday. It's also, I think, fireworks, Dollar Dogs, fan appreciation night. I unfortunately got to work my second job Saturday night, but anybody looking for something to do on a Saturday night, I believe they have $11 tickets Saturday night too. So hopefully that's close to a sellout, get the Progressive Field workers ready for the playoffs, dealing with a full house. So it's going to be interesting to see the atmosphere.
It's not too late to get your Guardians gear. I know at the beginning of the year, I looked at what the changes were at the logo, and, I was like, hey, regardless, I'm going to support my Cleveland team. I didn't know how the merch would sell. This playoff run is definitely going to help us sell some hats and some pennants and some sweatshirts, and, help generate the homestand, having the home 3 home games, plus after we win our series, having more home games. So it's going to help generate revenue for the team.
Yeah, check out SeatGeek for that gear too.
Absolutely. SeatGeek's been great. I've used them.
Tickets. I mean, why did I say gear? I meant the tickets. But yeah, postseason merch flying off the shelves so far. I actually got the email from the Guardians today, I think, because I bought tickets multiple times this season. They're letting us buy them a day early, so that's how I hopped on and got mine. So if you're a fan who's been to some games, make sure you check your email for tickets for the wild card round and the ALDS round. But I think tonight's game is getting underway. It's actually a really fun lineup with a lot of the kids. We got Tyler Freeman hitting second. I'm interested to see that. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this postseason, getting you ready for the postseason version of the Cleveland Guardians. Let's go finish out this season strong, no injuries, get some guys some rest, and let's head into October on a positive note. We will be back with you next Wednesday, and we'll take a look back at some of my preseason predictions as well and see how bad I shit the bed or how well I did. So thank you, everybody, once again for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
Yep, and thanks to all our followers and our sponsors, and thank you, Believe Lamb Media, and continue to follow us on all the streaming channels.
Yeah, check out BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all our podcasts and written content. Bye, guys.